Shall we begin? About to start this off with another episode, another round, information. Let's go. I'm trying to grow out a little more than just hip hop. That's like my go-to genre. Just that type of music when you out and about, you just can't help but move to it, you know? Get your little groove on. Salima Rah, our indie artist of the week. Highlight out of Brooklyn, BK. Let's go. Will you? Let's go. What's Hoodie Kim, folks? It's me again. The missing element, aka the middle energy. Me, Myself, and Eyez podcast episode 4. Another installment of the show / movie that we call life, you know what I mean? I pray all is well with you. Me, I'm doing great. Now, in our last episode, it ended at the start of a funeral for a man that we named OG. OG was not only a former president, but his son, who we would call G, right? He became president as well. One of the other sons, Jeb, became governor of Florida. Another son, Marv, became head of security for a firm that had a contract for WTC. We'll get into Marv in a second, but we have to deal with Jeb first. Now, just like in episode 3, we have to go back to the future again. As we try and travel back to 2000, the election, the oldest son, G, was running for president at that time. And it came down to just one state. And that happened to be the same state that his dear sweet brother Dumsi was running. You know, that was Florida. Now, with his brother at the helm, he was able to squeeze out a narrow victory. Now, on a side note, G had to go to court in order to get that election overturned or to win that election. And the 3 of the lawyers that were used in that case, they go by the names ACB, BC, and JR. And those are important initials to remember because they're going to come back up again later in the story. Now, on to Marv. Now, if you remember from the last episode, we spoke about how the tragic events, they had ulterior motives in mind. Now, WTC had a vault in it where tons of gold and silver was stored at. Marv's company not only ran security for WTC, but also had an airline that was used, as well as one of the airports that one of the planes flew out of. You think that's a coincidence? I don't think so. Now, as a result of Jeb getting G elected and Marv handling things behind the scenes, OG seemed to have everything he needed in place to pull off one of the largest heists in history, allegedly. That wouldn't be the first time that his name was tied to dirt either. OG is not only believed in certain circles to be behind the death of one famous president while head of an alphabet agency, but also he's believed to be behind the attempt of another famous president while he was serving as VP. You know, he would have become top dog had that happened. He was also thrown in shady weapons deals, all of which could, if true, be considered acts against the country. And that word treason would float around again. So now, we're going to fast forward back to December of 2018. And OG has returned to his maker. DJ once again arrived after everyone had been seated and quietly sat through the ceremony, you know. And before his arrival, certain guests were given mysterious envelopes and they were inside the programs. Now, Hill, if you remember her, she was the only one who didn't show any emotion, but the rest looked visibly disturbed. CJB got one, Bo and his wife Mike got one as well. So did DJ's supposed right-hand man MP. They all have been served notice. And as one last mic drop, DJ leaves out of the church before OG's casket does. And as OG's casket passes by his sons G and Jeb, the soldiers hand out another envelope as they pass by. And when G's wife and Jeb look at whatever was on the envelope in the paper, it appears as if Jeb's heart fell out and that he saw a ghost. And while this was happening, G looked straight ahead as if he already knew what the paper had said, and he didn't even want to see people's reaction to it, you know. Now, there's been much speculation in regards to what was in that envelope. Some say it was heads up for the coming of impending doom. And although we can't confirm or deny that at this time, it's definitely something that can stay on the wall for now. And just like J-Mac, pictures of OG's dog began to surface, along with pictures of a wrinkled flag, which we discussed, is rumored to be code for a traitor. Now, I cannot confirm that that's what it in fact means, but both of their caskets were definitely wrinkled. And I will say, though, that in light of all of the accusations against OG, I am inclined to believe that if he was guilty of such things, the data gathering alphabet folks that DJ now ran, they were definitely able to uncover that information. And then coincidentally, not long after OG is put to rest, the anonymous poster, who we're going to start calling 17, he was asked whether or not we had the gold. 17's response was yes. And see, there was another story floating around in alt media, floating around all over alt media. The lamestream schmedia had certainly blacked all of this information out. So you can pretty much only find this stuff in alt media sources. But there certainly was another story floating that the good guys who worked for 17 had in fact recovered the gold that was stolen from WTC and that it was somehow tied to OG. So now the past meets the present, because those were events that had took place back in 2001. And now we fast forward all the way back up to 2018. And everything comes back around full circle, allegedly. Now, if we can just press pause for a moment, what have we learned? What can we prove? We got all of these things on the board, and certain things have been already proven true. Well, there's clearly some emails out between a senator and a governor discussing the scenario of killing DJ as a way of still securing power. And then the governor in this plot winds up being DJ's VP. OG was accused and believed to be behind some of the biggest attacks against our country. And his sons were in positions to easily execute some of those crimes he was accused of. At his funeral, envelopes were passed out to people who stood as ops to DJ since he declared his running in 2015. And whatever those envelopes read, it caused a serious disturbance of peace to everyone except the devil herself. Now, are you with me so far? Good. Now, 2019 brings in a year of much prosperity for most Americans. There's no war. DJ declares U.S. independence from the global power structure. Average household income increases. That's a real measure for me. It increased in 3 years 6 times more than it did in the previous 16 years. That was major to me. I took note of that. And the country was running like a well-oiled machine. This was especially true for the lowest ring, aka black folk. Record low unemployment for youth, record funding for education, record funding for black businesses. All of these things are huge. Not to mention what he did for prison reform. The tax cuts to bring back, manufacturing to the U.S., that was working. And this was in spite of the fact that the previous boss, Bo, had said that DJ would need a magic wand to do so. Pretty much nothing could stop the U.S. at that point. Nothing could stop DJ. There were rumblings of impeachment from that fake Russia doc that we spoke about in episode 1, but it was a big nothing burger, as we later found out. He had also been warned back in 2016 and 2017 of a coming pandemic. We didn't know when or where, though. 2019 was also the first year that I came across my first post from 17. And that's where this episode comes to an end. You see, I came across this post in passing, but it certainly sparked my interest. It was smart. I like intellect. Intelligence is key to navigating life. The dark room doesn't seem so scary when you already know what's in there. So I leave this post up for you to see, blanking out certain parts that might disturb the soul. I just simply ask you, does it spark your interest the same way it sparked mine? Are you following along the story so far? I know it's complicated, but one day it'll all make sense. With that being said, thanks for your time. It's the most valuable thing we have. Hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell so you know when the next episode drops. Peace be unto you, kin folks. I'm just me.